Hi, everyone. My name is Beth Deloria, and I welcome you to our presentation on bracing. I'm coming to you today from Greensboro, North Carolina. And while I am really honored to be a part of the Connect conference today, I'm also really disappointed that we can't be together in person because one of our primary objectives of our original program was to allow you access to hands-on access to braces and accessories, because really it's the easiest way, the best way to understand the benefits and the differences of these braces when you can try them out for yourselves. But that is not going to happen. So instead, we've packed a whole lot of information into this slideshow. And admittedly, it is going to go fast and furious to get everything in, but not to worry, because all of the information here and in even greater detail will be ready for you to view and download online as soon as the presentation is over. On behalf of Rod, Justy, and Allard USA, I'd like to thank you for attending this webinar, where we will be covering bracing in general and Allard braces in particular. Both Justy and I will be live taking your questions at the end of the slideshow. And while Rod will not be with us today, he is eager to answer any of your questions by phone or email. So please be sure to submit these to me so I can pass them along. And for those who aren't familiar with Rod already, he has been a longtime advocate for FSHD awareness. And since 2013, he's been a co-captain of Team Up, working to spread awareness about living with mobility issues. And he's collaborated on this presentation. Here's a brief hello from Rod.
Hey, I'm Rod Fulmer. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I have FSH, which most of y'all that know me know all about me. I'm currently in Richmond, Virginia today, and I just came from VCU participating in the Fulcrum drug study. So I met up here in Richmond with Beth, and we wanted to just talk about the Allard braces that I've worn for 6-7 years.
So we'll start our crash course with understanding basic terminology. In the healthcare and insurance realm, braces are referred to as orthoses. The singular would be an orthosis. The field of orthotics involves the fitting of braces or splints that are intended to support under-functioning body parts. Alternately, artificial limbs or body parts are called prostheses. The singular is a prosthesis. The field of prosthetics involves designing and fitting artificial limbs or body parts. And practitioners in these fields are called orthotists and prosthetists. Their clinics are called O&P or P&O facilities for short, and the entire field is referred to as the O&P industry. Orthotists and prosthetists are not medical doctors, but they must complete intensive education, training, and certification. The goal of O&P is to restore biomechanical actions, not just replace a part or immobilize it. The main difference between orthotics and prosthetics is that orthotics involves fitting braces or splints onto existing parts, where prosthetics refers to the fitting of devices where body parts are missing. In addition to the O&P specialists, these doctors may also provide and fit orthotics for you. Podiatrists can only treat lower extremity issues. Orthopeds primarily work with all musculoskeletal systems. And the PM&R docs work with everything, including neuromuscular and cardiovascular systems. That said, it's highly recommended that if you have a chronic or progressive situation where bracing will be needed longer term, definitely work with an orthotist, because they have a broader base of knowledge and experience, and they're required to stay current in this field specifically, so they'll have better access to the latest technology. The doctors above may have some experience, but in most cases, the extent of their training was during a brief O&P rotation in med school. So these common symptoms of FSHD may be somewhat managed with orthotic interventions, but only to a limited scale. For scapular winging and shoulder weakness, research shows that most available orthoses really provide little functional benefit and may offer only stabilization support. However, I did come upon a recent study that showed promise in a 29-year-old male with FSHD and severe scapular winging. Test results and his personal feedback both showed marked improvement when wearing a prototype of a uniquely configured shoulder orthosis. So there is reason to hope, but so far there's nothing available on the general market. As for abdominal or spinal issues, over-the-counter back braces can provide postural support to prevent issues from getting worse, such as lordosis or curvature of the spine, but functional benefits are minimal. And the same goes for knee braces that serve to stabilize the knee. These can prevent joint damage further up the chain to the hips, spine, or neck, but otherwise no true functional assist. For hamstring or quad weakness, some people may actually benefit from a knee, ankle, foot orthosis. These orthoses go from the foot all the way to the top of the leg and can prevent hyperextension, as well as offer support for those who may struggle with balance or while standing for long periods of time. However, once the weakness gets extreme, a CAFO might not prove as useful to the wearer throughout daily activities. The good news is that orthoses are extremely beneficial when it comes to lower extremity symptoms, specifically AFOs, which offer many functional benefits. So what is an AFO? It's basically an ankle-foot brace that restores as close to normal gait as possible. And whether that's just going about your daily life or designed for higher levels of activity, such as marathoning or cycling. The common materials used to make AFOs are plastics, metals, carbons, Kevlar, leather, or combinations of all of these. And they come in 3 basic groupings. You have custom molded braces, which they will either take a plaster cast of your leg or a 3D scan, and they'll make one custom designed to fit your exact anatomy. Then there are straight off the shelf or prefabricated options, and those are intended to be right out of the box or bag. You put it on, no adjustments are made, and you're on your way. And finally, kind of a combination of both. There are customizable prefab shells, and these are AFOs which are manufactured and then shipped to your orthotist, and there you will get all of the customizations that create the best fit, function, and comfort for you. You may be surprised to know that there are literally hundreds of different AFOs out there, and they all fall under one category or another depending on their intended benefit or their overall design. I've recently learned that the terminology of these categories is not universal, but rather it's geographical. So that a brace, say, made in North Carolina may fit into one category, but may be considered in a totally different class, say, in Seattle. Anyway, this information will be very basic, but you'll be able to gain a general understanding of the most common AFO styles and their benefits or limitations. So the first is the static AFOs. These are usually made of plastic and are very rigid or semi-flexible. They serve to immobilize the foot and ankle in a neutral position. And then you have dynamic, which adds a hinged joint to the static braces. So this immobilizes the foot for the most part, but it does allow for some up or down movement of the ankle. Then you have the combination of these two, and they can function similarly to either, but often either offer lighter weight versions or more sturdy versions or more range of motion. And finally, the last one to hit the market in the most recent decades have been the ground reaction or floor reaction dynamic response braces. And out of all the styles here, this is the only one that offers true propulsive assist. So these are Allard braces pictured here, and they're biomechanically designed to provide an almost spring-like push-off, almost like a diving board action. So we'll talk more about the Allard braces later, but for now, let's give a reminder of the functional benefits of wearing an AFO. Prevention of further damage, reduction of pain, assisting balance or supporting posture, reducing the chance of tripping and falling, a really important one, restoring proper gait mechanics, reducing fatigue, reducing the rate of muscle atrophy, and promoting higher levels of activity or duration. And if it's not confusing enough already, some AFOs will offer you all of these advantages, and others maybe just one or two. But even more, there are AFOs that can actually contribute to your problems. For instance, some brace designs can encourage atrophy in the calf muscles or weakness in the Achilles tendon. So I think that's why I loved Cardin Wyckoff's article so much when I found it a few years back. She compared shopping for AFOs to buying jeans. Personally, I have to try on 100 pairs of jeans to find just one that I love, and it has been the same way with me and AFOs. It's hard to say when it may be time to get an AFO because it's really such a personal decision. Now, I do understand not wanting to wear one, trust me, but this shouldn't stop anyone from considering the real life benefits. Here are some helpful questions to consider because there really are significant advantages to getting an AFO sooner than later, especially if you have chronic or progressive conditions. Some imbalances in joint pains now can become very serious down the road, and many of these can be prevented by orthotic interventions. So if you can relate to 2 or more of these questions, I suggest it may be time to have a conversation with an orthotist. When you are ready to look into AFOs more seriously, I highly recommend researching Allard AFOs. For thousands of people like Rod Fulmer and myself, these have been game changers. Rather than go into the background of the company here, I want to go into the actual particulars about the braces themselves, but I've included QR codes that you can scan to get easily linked to the websites. Back in '97, Allard put their first AFO on the market, and it was such a quantum leap in technology that it was patented. The most important design features making these AFOs stand out are the anterior shell, which fits along the front of the leg rather than the back, the lateral strut, which traverses around the outside part of your foot and ankle, the open heel, which allows for engagement of the calf muscles and a much greater range of motion, and finally, the superior carbon fiber and Kevlar dynamic foot plate. And the styles I featured on the previous page are in order of levels of stability that they provide, which is what this graphic represents. So if you're somebody with minimal weakness, you'll want to start with the most flexible brace on the left, and that would be the Ypsilon. If, for instance, you have the most weakness or a very pronounced weakness, you're going to want to go all the way to the end where you're going to get the maximum support. And of course, you can go anywhere in between as your symptoms progress or get better. So if you aren't convinced that customizable prefab AFOs are not as good as custom, just look at all the different ways that your brace can be fitted to your exact and unique needs. You've got multiple models and sizes from which to choose from. And Allard also offers an incredible array of accessories to help ensure optimal comfort and function. And finally, once your AFO is shipped to your orthotist, there are even more customizations he or she can make to ensure the best combination to suit your individual needs. And for more details on all these accessories and adjustments, I encourage you to check out the brochures because there's lots of photos that will make it easier for you to understand. There is no one right brace for everyone, and no one brace will do everything you need it to, unfortunately. So having a great partnership with your orthotist is critical. Over time, you're going to need to make certain tweaks and adjustments. For instance, if you've gained or lost a significant amount of weight, your orthosis is going to have to be tweaked a bit for fitting. Your orthotists understand this. However, they are not mind readers, so you have to be sure to communicate and take responsibility for making follow-up appointments. And here's some advice collected from long-term brace wearers. We can agree that you want to look for the least restrictive brace that still addresses your specific needs, because that's going to allow for higher function and range of motion. It's going to encourage you to use it, not lose it, when you're working under more of your own power than being dependent on an assisted device. You want to look for braces that are the most comfortable and most functional for you. I mean, let's face it, you're not going to wear a brace that hurts, and you're not going to wear a brace if it's not doing what you need it to do for you. And finally, if possible, try before you buy, because many manufacturers offer trial periods or at least testing options that they provide their orthotists. And your orthotist might have samples on hand that you can at least get a basic understanding. So with insurance now saying that you have to wait 5 years before they'll cover another brace, it's really important that you get it right the first time. At getbackuptoday.com, we have much more in-depth advice about how to get an AFO, what to do in your first appointment, etc. And we call this what to expect when inspecting an AFO. With such limited time today, I'm only including the basis. You will need to get a prescription from your doctor. You'll need to consult with your insurance company on what may be covered, and then you'll need to make an appointment with the local orthotist. And again, these are the basics about knowing what you should expect for your first OOP appointment, but we have much more advice in our patient guide, so I encourage you to download that. When Rod Fulmer and I were reviewing this information, I asked whether we should add anything else, and here's what he wanted me to pass along to you about considering an AFO.
I could give you 5 things to consider when looking at braces. These would be the things that I would look at.
And yes, AFOs are life-changing for so many of us, but they don't come without a few bumps in the road. So there are a few things you'll need to keep in mind and to pay attention to as you go forward in getting used to your brace. So this is not by any means a complete list. We've got more information, but I would like to say at least one thing, that you do not have to keep the orthotist you have. If you don't have a great communication style with them, then we would encourage you to check out the resources where you can find other O&Ps available in your area, because for a long-term partnership, it's important that you're the one who's happy with the relationship. And before we go to the Q&A, I'd like to invite all of you to join our Team Up community. Go to getbackuptoday.com and click on Join the Movement. And there you can read about all kinds of people like ourselves. You can inspire by adding your own story or be inspired by the ones that are there. So we would love to have you aboard. And any questions that aren't answered in today's Q&A, please send them to me and I will direct them to whomever you would prefer an answer from. And check out our websites as well for additional information. And I'd just like to say thank you so much for participating today. We were so happy to be a part of this convention.